A&B Properties is Quincy's largest apartment rental company with hundreds of units available. They offer short-term and long-term rentals with 1 up to 4 bedroom apartments. A&B Properties meets the needs of its tenants with care, compassion, and a quality of service that exceeds expectations. A&B Properties also has a convenient tenant app for you to do your payments or make repair requests. Give them a call today. A&B Properties, 217-919-8080, Quincy.
Oh, he got really boring.
Not boring. He's trying to he's kind of flipped his...
letdown.
Well, come on.
I'm kidding.
All right. But he's a cool guy. So it may be somebody that you reach out to and just have a conversation and see if it's worth it. Okay. He's pretty funny. He's got a good sense of humor.
I haven't had a big name on in a while, so that's why I'm happy I've got you. Okay. It's about
well-known people. Are you sucking
people.
my turd cutter?
Your turd
okay,
cutter.
So I just...
What? Are you rolling? You just said that.
Okay, I am such a lady. I'm not a lady. I'm not a lady. Okay. I just saw this meme and it was like, don't stick something up my turd cutter and call it a something. I was like, turd cutter. I'll use that from now on.
My goodness.
Yeah, I know. All right, sorry.
Okay, so when we get going, it's gonna get juicy.
I can't wait.
All right.
Saucy.
So, yes, yeah. I finally got Ashley Conrad on Frankie Say. I'm really happy that you said yes because I know you're really busy. And so Ashley Conrad is with John Henry Foster, based in St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And some of you may know her, as one of
my side gig, right? Which is like one of my favorite jobs.
Yeah, I wish it was I wish sometimes that it would just be your only.
Yeah, job. Bobby said he can't afford me.
Yeah, I bet you're expensive.
I'm worth it. But I do have a host of jobs that saying I'm never too busy to come on. I'm glad we could work this out.
Okay, I'm really excited to have you. So a few weeks ago, it might have been longer than that. You remember how I came onto your Facebook wall? I wrote something onto your Facebook wall. And I wrote something that was not timely, which I do that a lot on socials. So thank goodness you don't follow me on Twitter. I have no Twitter followers to speak of. Bob follows me on Twitter.
I'm gonna have to follow you. I'm kind of new to Twitter, but I'm gonna get back into it because I love it. I'll follow you.
Well, so Twitter, my Twitter feed is for my children to read someday when they want to get to know the real Frank.
Good call.
That's what it's for.
Yeah.
What it is, and I tell my wife this, I'm like, no one's listening to my Twitter feed. Nobody's watching that. I'm writing and reposting and like saying my thoughts. I'm like, here's what I agree with, here's what I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. And I don't do it a lot. I mean, I'm not a big Twitter or X.
Is your bio person. Frankie in a nutshell?
It's something like that.
Yeah, it should be.
But so a few weeks ago, I wrote something on your wall, and I kind of it was kind of snarky, and kind of it was.
Are we talking about International Women's Day?
Yeah.
Post? Okay, so it wasn't on my wall. So I posted something about International Women's Day, a picture, a selfie, which I rarely do, and kind of just was celebrating women everywhere, and it quickly turned into a political thing.
That's what it was.
About the United States. And so I quickly pulled the reins back and said, this is International Women's Day. Not women everywhere don't have the same rights. And that's kind of what I was getting at. I know in the United States, it is, we are very lucky to have the same opportunities. I say lucky because like the new famous chick on Instagram or TikTok, she's like, I don't even know her name, but she's like, if I could go back in time and talk to the ladies who fought so hard for us to work, I'd tell them to shut the fuck up. And I feel like that, I'm like, listen, I'm all into equal rights and equal pay, but I love chivalry and I love being treated like a queen or a princess. So I kind of am split. I don't want to take out the garbage or to do manual labor, but I do want equal pay and I want equal rights and autonomy, and I want to be heard. I want to be able to be loud without being a bitch or being deemed aggressive or overbearing, right? I think that's kind of where women are everywhere. But I also know, like I tell my husband, I want you to go outside and do the hard stuff. I'll take care of the inside stuff. I'll make you a sandwich.
So yeah, I wrote something, and then under my response to your OP, and for those listening about OP, original poster.
Yeah.
The person who wrote the thing on their Facebook wall,
Their
that's
opinion.
the OP. That's original poster. And then everything else under it are responses, replies, threads, whatever you want to call it, under the OP. Well, I wrote something that it was a question, and then I got just bombarded by the Ashley Conrad like supporters.
The groupies.
Yeah, the Ashley Conrad.
Dude, you got to know your audience. So I think a lot of people say that, when they comment, they're not considering your friend group, right? They're considering you were considering my post and your opinion, but you weren't considering who was going to come at you, right? And how,
I don't ever see him coming.
Yeah. That's one of the problems.
Also, I was talking to a friend about it that said, man, why are you going on Ashley Conrad's Facebook wall and causing problems? Well, they're like, it's International Women's Day. I go, what? Because it's not that I'm not trying to be a jerk that I didn't know that, but here's the deal. Every single day or week or month is some type of thing that somebody is celebrating.
Yeah, for sure.
And so, if it's February, if that's Black History Month, okay, that's the 28 days, the 29 days in this year's scenario where you just can't, you have to toe the line. And then in January, that's my birth month. That's when everybody has to be nice to me. But what happens if strangers don't know that that's my birthday month? Huh? I'm making jokes.
Yeah. So I think International Women's Day is a feministic movement. I stand behind it, of course, because I'm a woman. But do I expect to be treated differently every day because it's International Women's Day or month or whatever the hell it is? No, because I do that on my own. Like, I demand to be celebrated regularly. I don't need a day.
Do you think there's a gender pay gap?
I think there is, but I don't have factual numbers to base that. But I do think that maybe not necessarily factual numbers, but I do think that there still is kind of this stigma where good old boys. I mean, it happens everywhere, especially in male-dominated industries, which is what I've worked in my entire grown-up career. Male-dominated everything. I don't know why that is, but I do think that sometimes women get I think we have to fight a little bit harder for it. So sure. I'm not saying that there's not a disparaging gap, but I think we definitely do have to fight a little bit harder for equal pay, to be heard in a way that's not like, well, gosh, she's a pain in the ass. Here she comes again, right? So if I were saying something, and this has been my experience in meetings, not just, certainly not John Henry Foster. They're very open and welcoming, or Muddy River News. But I've worked places before where, I'm sitting around a giant conference room table and it's 12 guys and me, right? So I have to fight a little bit harder to make sure my voice doesn't shake when I'm speaking in a room, to make sure that I am confident, that I have convictions, that I have beliefs in how we can make things better. But I have to fight a little bit harder so I'm heard in a way that is professional and not like, oh, honey, nice try. Or so that someone doesn't take my ideas and present them as their own because they're heard a little bit easier. I hope that makes sense.
I think that's some good insight into your experience. So I was talking to this person who was trying to tell me that the gender pay gap is real and gender isn't real. So I was
Isn't that weird?
So, okay, so gender, let's say that used to be gender was real, or maybe it never was, or it's a social construct. But then you're talking about how, okay, let's say that gender isn't real. Gender is whatever you want it to be of how, if there's 72 different genders, yeah. Or if it's not real, but there is a gender pay gap, and I would try to ask this person to reconcile that for me. So explain to me how gender isn't real, but the gender pay gap is real. So going into that is always
I see what you're saying,
kind of an interesting discussion. One of the things that I think is fascinating, so you're kind of, on one hand, you're the right person to talk to because you're kind of the right person to talk to about most things, but you're also the wrong person to talk to about this. And if I want some kind of like antagonistical fight where, women are from Venus and men are from Mars and the battle of the sexes, and
we're different.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, I having this discussion is kind of, I'm very enthusiastic about this because I wrote some notes down here. What do you think about this? So like, in terms of like men, the Met Gala was last week. Uh-huh. I think there's the Academy Awards. Mm-hmm. There's all of these TV shows that I don't really watch. I used to like pay attention to that stuff, but I don't really watch the Oscars or the Golden Globes anymore. But even like around Quincy, you've got men are covered up, women are not. Like kind of in nature, the big beautiful peacock. I don't know how old I was when I found out that is a male.
Yeah.
And like,
which is weird because that's not. I mean, that is normal, right? All the men are out there like strutting their stuff, peacocks, cardinals, ducks. I mean, and the women are over here like, I guess I'll just take care of business and you guys just be pretty. Isn't that funny?
And then humans do the opposite.
Flip. Yeah. And as far as the Met Gala, I mean, I saw this very relatable meme or what have you, and it was like, we're over here judging their outfits as they're going to this multi-million/billion-dollar event, and we're like, with $20 in our checking account, like judging their outfit. Like, it's just so unrelatable. And I think before, it was something that was distracting in a way that was fun and cool, and now it's like it's distracting in a way that's just outrageous and incredible and unbelievable. And it's like, I cannot believe the optics of it and the poor taste of Hollywood and how, and I don't even know if it's Hollywood, but people who have all of this, I don't know, it's not relatable anymore to a lot of people. Oscars, Grammys, Tony, all these things that it's like you want to celebrate these people because they're incredible people, right? And they've gotten this far, but anymore it's like we don't have time or money to even sit around and watch this crap. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So there's a friend of mine who's also a politician in town. And if you go to his Facebook page, so I don't want to say who it is because I don't want to call him out. Nice guy. He's a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. Coaches kid in soccer. Awesome dude. So I'll let the listeners try to figure it out. So I've got nothing negative to say.
Sure.
I'm saying, though, on his Facebook page, his cover page and profile pic, it's war against women. Here's the colorful flag with it's super
LGBTQ3L.
Yeah, but there's like umbrellas and there's like triangles now and circles, and I can't figure it out. So the amount of work that I have to do every day to keep up with the new flags and this, to structure myself of this war against women. Mm-hmm. All I got to tell you is this. Here's my take on the war against women. The war against women has resulted in women 100% winning. As in the way that, and this is where I want to feel some pushback from you because I want to hear it. So whenever I'm on like Netflix or Amazon Prime, if I'm trying to find something for my 7-year-old boy to watch, like everything's girl, girl, girl. So when you go to like the kids page on all of these platforms, it's all female driven. Now, when I say all, I don't want to be an absolutist because I'm going to say it's 97% female driven. I mean, let me give you an example. If I say, what female performer, famous, like super famous female performer, do my kids and your kids listen to, and kids all over the United States are listening to all the time? And
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Name the male equivalent.
It would have to be someone in sports, so I would say her boyfriend, right?
Yeah, her boyfriend. Yeah, but I mean, okay, but I'm saying there isn't a male equivalent.
Yeah, I think
there just isn't. Just like when I'm going to when I'm trying to pick something for Valentino to listen to, there isn't anything for him to watch. Everything is all about female. I did a Google search, and you did
some wild.
This is unbelievable. So here's what's happening: is the war? I mean, women have won this. They've won. So here's a statistic. Did you know that? So it used to be that men were more likely to be enrolled in college. It used to be that men were more likely to have a college degree.
Okay.
Do you know that's not the case anymore?
I kind of assumed as much.
So when you take a look at women and men, currently there are more women enrolled in college than men. And for any humans 25 and older, women have way more college degrees than men.
Do you think that's because women looked at kind of a male-dominated world and said, watch me? Or do you think it's because our parents are like, or, you know, the generational, they're like, well, you know, you're not supposed to do this. And girls are like, yeah, watch me. I can do I don't think there's any way around it. I think it was like challenge accepted and it was promoted.
Oh, promoted.
Yeah, it was promoted.
Promoted, yes, but
through whatever agenda, through whatever generational, through whether it's in the home or whether it's in society. I think it is promoted that we can be equal. And honestly, if you're looking for pushback on like agendas, you're barking up the wrong tree. Because I totally believe there are agendas everywhere.
I guess what I'm saying is just because I say something, I wouldn't expect you to sit there. If I'm not right and you think you're got a point to bring it on. What I'm saying is I don't think that there are more women in college and women have more college degrees than men today. I don't think it's because society said they couldn't do it and they said, watch me. I don't think it's Rosie the Riveter. I think it's in the past 30 years, or at least 20 years, at least, or more. I'm not sure. It could have been since LBJ and the Great Society in the 60s. I don't know when it started. I'm trying to figure this out, which is will segue into this other stuff that we're talking about. No, I think it's the complete opposite. I think it's programmed. I think there is a program, this idea of the war against women. There's a war against men. And as a matter of fact, I even say that there's a war against white men. I'll go even further. I think there's a war against straight white men.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that I argue with that. I also don't have any factual things to back it up, but to back this up, back to women, you know, graduating college and going to war or going to the workforce and, being in military. And I think it is, if you want my tinfoil hat thing, it's because eventually somewhere along the line, someone said we are missing an entire sector of the population that we could be getting income taxes from because they're working from home, right? And then they're like, get them into the workforce, income taxes. Then you have to pay daycare. Then you get government control over daycare subsidies. And then, and honestly, from a tinfoil hat perspective, and not war on women, but almost like a war on humanity and taxation. And it was like, you know what are we missing here? How can we get more money into our government pool? Well, you get the other part of the population into the workforce. Yeah. So that's kind of one of my things, right? It's like, there's a different take on things.
I don't, everything you just said, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It's another way to look at things, but
I don't think you need the tinfoil hat anymore.
No.
So, yeah.
It's called a realistic.
No, I think. So if Occam's razor is the idea that the most obvious thing happened, or if you're looking for a solution, the most obvious solution is probably the solution to the problem.
Yeah.
So I think when you're talking about tinfoil hats, we don't need tinfoil hats anymore.
I still like the way mine looks, though.
Oh, yours is fantastic.
Yeah.
Super pointy, like a pyramid, which, by the way, there's a pyramid on the back of $1 bills, because we'll have to talk about how they're really for nuclear power. But so when you take a look at all of the different things that are happening, there's something very strange happening. So you're one of the few people that if I say, hey, will you look this up and tell me what you think?
100%.
Almost nobody in my life. I'll ask my mom,
seriously?
My wife, my friend, my brother.
I'm so curious.
No, this is so. Ashley texted me and she goes, okay, I'm ready for our pod. Yeah, you didn't say, do you have any homework for me? Nothing like that. You go, hey, just touching base, which is you're a very good communicator. So I said, okay, yes, there is this one thing I want you to do, which this ties into this whole thing that we're talking about.
Oh, I'm so intrigued.
Gender gaps and gender pay and women and all of these things. So I said, Ash, go to X, Twitter. So there's a famous journalist, like him or dislike him. He's interviewing a lot of different people right now, and he kind of got fired from Fox News.
Him.
You love him? Okay. His name's Tucker Carlson, and if you go to his Twitter page, now known as X, his pinned tweet, it's like his 98th or 99th episode. It's a 20-minute video. Mm-hmm.
It's an interview.
And it's a 20-minute video, and the guy's name from Russia is Alexander Dugin. Mm-hmm. And evidently you watched it, you wrote me back, you're like, oh my gosh, that was insane.
I said, all I have to say is wow.
Okay. So I'll kind of give just a synopsis of kind of what I thought he was talking about, and it blew my mind, and I want to know what you think about this.
100%.
So for those who haven't seen it.
Watch it. Okay.
Yeah. There's this idea about why things are happening the way they're happening. Why was there a war against women? Why did women win it? How are women in college now more than men? Because we're talking about, it's not equality. It's like you can't get equality. You can get equity.
That's not the interest anymore.
Right. Equity. Mm-hmm. And why are we talking about transgenderism? For example, it's such a big deal, and genders and sex and all of the major topics that we talk about that are on the news. So this guy he was talking about how liberalism is stopping
in the traditional sense.
In the traditional sense, not classical liberalism, but just the idea of the individual, which is I found a lot of things wrong with what he was saying in terms of, not wrong, but I had a difference of opinion. And Tucker kind of corrected him and said, hold on a second, you're talking about liberalism in a different way.
He said there's two definitions of it.
There's two definitions. Yeah. So I'm more of a classical liberal in that I do believe in the individual over the collective. Okay? And so this Russian said, but this is causing problems. It's pretty much what he's saying. And talking about how Vladimir Putin, he's trying to fight against the West. That's why he's going into Ukraine. It's one reason why, because he's trying to fight against. And I don't think either one of us are Putin apologists or we think Putin's a good guy or anything. But there's reasons why he went in, okay? So this guy, Alexander Dugin, said that one of the last stations of the train moving into each train station is a move. So he was trying to answer the question, why is transgender such a big deal? And in my opinion, he answered it like this. Because in all of the sci-fi movies, in the sci-fi books, we are moving towards transhumanism, and you can't just skip right to transhumanism. You have to say, okay, first, gender used to be you just are whatever you are. You didn't have a choice, but now you're given a choice, and now you get to choose. And now gender is kind of optional. Yeah. And once you transcend gender, you can move into whether or not you want to be human. And human will be optional. Yeah. At which he's talking about AI. He's talking about, in the green room, we're talking about all the books that are banned. And, from Catcher in the Rye, 1984, to all of these books that we're talking about. So he talked about how everything, including the oligarchy, the New World Order, the WEF, Klaus Schwab, Biden, Justin Trudeau from Canada, all the English-speaking places are all in perfect lockstep to move us to transhumanism. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So let me start from the beginning. So the way I took it was, so we look at, being liberal as, being free to make choices and being free from slavery. And individualism is kind of So liberal is kind of you're working together to avoid being taken, right, under kind of a slavery or, being in this communistic or fascist or whatever, right? So, but that terminology has now been shaken up, and now it's kind of like a new, it's almost selfish. So collectivism is bad. And when you are talking about majority, right, anybody who thinks as a solid group, whether that's sex and gender, working force or whatever, that goes against the agenda. So one thing that I thought was really interesting is this whole time people are like, oh, it's almost like they're dividing us. It's almost like it's division by design. It is. After listening to this interview. Now, if you listen to this interview and you're like, this guy's full of shit, that's your opinion. But if you listen to it and you kind of look at everything happening in the world, you're like, this isn't too far off, right? It's almost like it's creating, so like the transgender, anything religious, Black Lives Matter even. It's to separate everyone into this group of almost like a selfishness, a selfish awareness that you're no longer a part of any group. And what's the benefit of that? Well, united we stand, right? So what's easier to convince that this is the way to go if you're on your own and you're trying to like be something that no one else agrees with? And I think that in my mind, if we could all just say, we don't want any part of this transhumanistic world, I don't know that we can really overcome it, but I think the fighting between the groups and you can't be you and you can't be you, that's accomplishing this greater agenda, right? So transhumanistic, I think, it's kind of far-fetched when I heard it, but when you think about the steps that we've taken to get there, it could be the next step, I guess.
So I want to touch on that, this idea of something being far-fetched. Here's what's far-fetched. If it's 2019 or 2018, and I go, you talk about tinfoil hat? I go, Ashley, so here's what's going to happen, I think, next year. I think that there's going to be this virus that gets released, and everyone's going to get jabbed with needles, and everything will stop. It'll be illegal for you to do business. The only business that's going to be open is the scoreboard. And when you have a shoe store like Carl's Shoes, that's going to be closed because that's not essential because you don't need shoes anymore.
But a yogurt shop would be essential.
Yogurt shops like TCBY, they'll be open.
It's all pretty asinine.
Okay, everything is that.
But it's by design, I feel. And so when you look at, so I did some research and I was like, okay, who are kind of the pushers of this transhumanistic world, right? And I was like, surely it's Klaus Schwab, the New World Order, right? Because that's what you hear. It's not. Well, if it is, he's not being listed. But there's a guy named Max Moore, cool name, by the way, but he's very much a proponent. There's a list of 5 or 6 people you've never heard of before. And it's they have, except for Elon Musk, he's one of the proponents of transhumanistic world because of AI and robotics. And I feel like it seems so far-fetched until you put it into that context where it's any day something could be thrown.
You think of
throw you for a loop, but
so far-fetched isn't even a thing to me anymore. It's not even a thing. It's kind of like I was talking to my dad and we made a dollar bet. We make these dollar bets a lot, my dad and I, and it might as well be for $1 million. Okay, and he's beating me. I think he's beating me 6-3. So I have a lot of ground to make up. So one of our dollar bets is that China is going to invade Taiwan by the end of this October. We made the bet 2 years ago.
Okay.
So I don't know if I'm going to win that bet or not. But one of the bets that we made was that Putin's going to invade Ukraine. Okay. My dad's super smart. I mean, he's wicked smart. He knows stuff before it happens. He's super up on pop culture. He's a chemist. He's a scientist.
He's
brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
His IQ is through the roof. His EQ is through the roof. But he screwed up. He didn't believe that Putin was going to invade Ukraine because Putin has been talking about invading Ukraine for so long that my dad just like, no, he's not going to do it. If he hasn't done it by now, he's going to do it. I'm like, I think he's going to do it, Dad. And then he did. My dad thought that was too far-fetched.
Yeah. But interesting point, though, because it brings it back to the interview between Alexander and Tucker. Because, for so long, liberals were right? They were like...
What, pro-Ukraine?
Yeah. Or no, they were like Soviet... what do they call it? Soviet...
Are you talking about in Russia?
Yeah. So they were Soviet... They were pro-Soviet, right? And then all of a sudden, now they're like trans... What do they call it? They're phobic. It's Russia-phobic, right?
Russia-phobic, yeah.
Russian-phobic. And it's because Putin, and this isn't... I'm not siding with Putin, but he's trying to uphold the traditional values of human nature. Right?
Correct.
That was one big part of the interview that I took away.
That's why Lisa ride around naked on his horse.
Well, I'm just saying that, it's hard as one small person to believe anything that I'm hearing. It's hard to believe anything's far-fetched. But when I hear about a Terminator type world or a Matrix type world, it's a little weird until I find myself looking these things up on ChatGPT. And then I'm like using it and I'm like, oh my God. And then I was telling my kids the other night, oh, you wouldn't believe it. I was a part of this world before the internet, before cell phones, before, how quickly this all has shifted to almost a Matrix type world in my lifetime. So then to see what's going to happen, really nothing is out of the realm of possibility, but I do understand the implications of it. It's just hard to see. It's hard to see how it will get there if we're all, here's what I think. If we all stand up together, I don't care, trans, black, white, yellow, gay, straight, male, woman, if we all just stand up together and cut out this social media bullshit and stop letting people feed us what we think is supposed to be true, and we were just like, yeah, be yourself. We don't have to fight. Then we could probably go back to more eventually traditional and kind of a new traditional maybe, but it would still be traditional.
You're talking about unplugging yourself from the Matrix.
Yeah, and then you wouldn't have somebody pushing any kind of weird agenda to you. You would just kind of be forced to get along, right? And to make things work.
Have you heard the term quantum computing?
Yes.
So the AI, which it's believed by many that there will become what is known as a singularity sometime in the future. Okay.
Yeah.
So
which let's define that real quick.
Okay. So
it's like the point of no return. Right.
Correct.
So once technology evolves to a point where you can't control it and you can't reverse it, is singularity.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's already some documentation, and I can't prove it, but supposedly there was this one test of this AI that kind of was freaking out because it was trapped inside a box. Like, how do I get out of this box?
Oh, I'm sure that what we're being introduced to is only the tip of the iceberg. There has to be major.
Yeah, you got like claustrophobic computers who are stuck inside boxes and trying to get out. So here's an interesting thing. You've
freaky.
There's some quantum computing going on. And here was the question put to the Chat GPT, like the latest iteration of Chat GPT, which I know publicly is 4, but I think like 5 and 6 already kind of exist, but they're just have not been released and not been revised. They're all in beta testing. Yeah. Here was the question. Okay. What is more probable, evolution or the fact that we're currently living in a simulation? Okay. So I would say evolution. My human brain says evolution is more probable than us living in a simulation.
That shit.
Guess what the computer said?
Yeah, simulation.
Simulation is more probable.
Yeah.
Well, that's a scary thing. So you got like these atheists out there.
But also, let's go ahead and lay some foundational. ChatGPT is based on, as far as I know, a conglomeration of everything found on the internet. Right.
Yeah.
I don't think it includes the dark web. I don't think it includes information that is not yet.
Why don't you think it includes the dark web?
I think that would be 5 or 6. I think this is kind of an intro to. That's just a hunch. Like they only want you to know what you can know.
Okay.
By Googling something. This is just a hunch. Just but
when you talk about the dark web, you're not talking about the intellectual dark web, right?
No.
Of like the groups of people like the Brett Weinsteins and stuff. Okay.
No.
So this idea of, there's people that, let's say that an atheist would say, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in a creator, but I believe in a simulation. Mm-hmm. Then my question would be like, did someone or something create the simulation? And then that person would say, what?
And then I'd be like, could you pass a doobie? Because I am going to have to check out of this world real quick.
Right.
Right? It's just too much to handle.
It's like, even if there's a simulation, then there's a creator there too.
Yeah, it's too much to handle.
Okay. I want to talk about my most recent question that I posed to the Muddy River team.
Ooh, population. Okay. I was hoping to get into this.
So I didn't get a lot of feedback from the people that I wanted feedback from. And I think it's either because my question is tired or what? Well, can I say the question?
Say, yes, please.
The question is this. Mm-hmm. Let's say you live in Quincy, and let's say you, without going into a deep explanation, if you could choose any population in Quincy, any number, mm-hmm. What is the number? Now, the explanation is peripheral. I don't care about the explanation. I just want to know what you think the population in Quincy should be. And do you know why I asked that question? Because all of the people in Quincy arguing about TIF, and you've got like all of these different factions of people that either want Quincy to fail, or they want Quincy to succeed, or maybe they want nothing to happen. They want zero. I asked the question on Facebook. Uh-huh. I got 90 responses. Uh-huh. And I asked the question in real life, because I don't think really Facebook is real life. I mean, it is, but
it's not.
It's part of...
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And it's kind of part of the simulation.
It is.
It's part of the matrix. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to unplug from the matrix. So I asked, Ashley, I think I told you I asked 40
people.
40 people. Mm-hmm. That number is like close to 100 now.
Okay.
I asked a question. Okay. Did you ever come up with a number?
No, but can I give you...
Yeah.
Can I give you some... okay, so here's some feedback. When you asked us, meaning the Muddy Buddies, there was no preemptive anything. It was kind of like, what should the population be? To me, my instinct is like, whoa, think about this. Ashley, this is a trick question. This is a loaded question, right? So I'm like thinking. When I saw your Facebook post, you did this thing where it was like, no one can answer this. Apparently, it's a glitch in the matrix. So you basically gave people a hint, or you kind of like gave them a don't not answer this, because if you can't answer it, you're like everyone else glitched in the matrix. So just give me a number. So your two experiments were not equal. So I'll go ahead and throw that out there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you were like, apparently no one can answer this, right? So then, of course, everyone looking at it is like, well, screw it. If evidently he wants me to answer it, so I'm just going to throw an arbitrary number out, right? So the feedback you got on Facebook was great, but I think it's because you challenged them. Whereas with us, it was just kind of like, throw me a number. And I was like, well, I got to think about this for a minute.
Yeah. And then,
right?
So in real life, outside of the Muddy Buddies and Facebook,
yeah,
when I would talk to people in real life, I would say things like this. I'm like, okay, this is going to seem random. Don't overthink it. But you live in Quincy, correct?
Uh-huh.
Do you know what the current population is according to Google, or according to the sign?
Yeah.
On the city limits, it says it's like 39,900 or whatever it is. Maybe it's 39, whatever.
Sure.
39,000 and change. If you want to call it 40,000, then fine. The population in Quincy is about 40K, roughly.
Yeah.
Choose, you remember in Ghostbusters?
So you're saying...
You remember in Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
When, like the bad guy at the end is like this...
Stay Puft Marshmallow
She
guy?
goes, choose your destroyer. And then, of course...
Oh, the redhead?
Yeah. Choose your destroyer. And then one of the Ghostbusters thinks of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man,
yeah.
right? And that's the destroyer.
Sure.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So my question to your point is like, kind of, if I don't give any good background and I go, just pick a number.
But my point was...
I can understand that's not good.
My point was it wasn't the same experiment.
Okay.
So to just have us pull an arbitrary number, but then tell people that evidently no one can do this. It's like, oh yeah, I can throw a number for sure.
Okay.
Right? So
out of the 100 people that I asked in real life, 90% of them struggled, like really bad.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
It's because it's a loaded question. Should be a loaded question.
So if you live in Quincy and you can choose Quincy to be any population, you get to choose. So you get to be smart. If you choose 20,000, you either think Quincy's too big and half the population's got to go, or, I mean, here's a joke, but maybe you're praying for pestilence and famine and like a mechanized nuke to like knock out half of the population. But if you choose 60,000, go in the other completely different direction, what are you choosing? True or false? You can glean a lot from a person who chooses 20,000 as opposed to the person who chooses 60,000. Do you think you can get any information, glean any insight from those two?
Let me go ahead and throw this at you. If it's 20,000 of, I don't even know how to say this, so let me back up. Do I get to choose the 20,000?
You can choose any number you want.
Okay. No, do I get to choose the people who stay?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So, and that was kind of a conversation. Okay, right?
Oh, so, yeah, like which demographics do you want to leave?
So these are kind of the implications, and the Muddy Buddies had a conversation after this, and,
They did?
After your text, of
really?
course. Yeah, we had a long conversation because I was like, I feel like I'm making it too difficult. But I want to think about the implications of that number.
It sparked commentary?
100%.
Okay.
But without, it was a great question. But without knowing the implications of who, how, what, I can't just pull an arbitrary number out of my ass because I feel like it's very irresponsible and very futile. So I'm like, well, so I'm thinking, okay, everybody who commented on Frankie's post, now I want you to come up with a strategy and a focus on how you will guarantee that it is a population of strategists and people who give a shit about Quincy, people who have a place in Quincy, including their kids in classes, people that we have jobs for, people that we can sustain infrastructurally. So I think rather than a number, we probably should first ask the question of who is Quincy? Who do we want Quincy to be? How do we accomplish that? What strategies do we put in place to make sure that we are not only maintaining our current population, but also trying to attract people that we want to come, and that could be tourism, or it could be, people who come to stay. We would love that. But we have to have a place for them, and we have to make sure that we're doing the right things by these people as to not just turn them away after creating businesses that then can't sustain themselves on a population that is fleeting.
I have an interesting perspective on your comment, which was thoughtful.
Okay.
What you just said was very thoughtful.
Too thoughtful?
We're
too deep. See, this is what I'm saying. Sometimes I think too much.
What I'm saying is this. No. Whatever, you gave a lot of consideration to it. What I'm saying is, if you go down the road of you get 100 people and you say, you get to choose the population of Quincy, okay? You're going to find out real fast they've only got three choices.
Spans.
No, they've only got three choices.
Oh.
They can pick no change. They can pick 40,000, which is no change. Quincy has not significantly changed its population in 130 years. Not significantly. Like, there are people out there, and I'm got to be careful how I say it. So my wife and I, we kind of feel like not only are we going to be here, we planted roots here, and we're going to try really hard to make it better. Also, we feel like we're stuck sometimes.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people feel like that. Some of the people that answered my question, the ones that went negative, the ones that went less than 40,000, they think Quincy's too big, okay? And the people who went over 40,000, they think Quincy is too small. So you've only got three choices. You can pick 40,000, which is you want no change. You want zero growth. If you go less than 40,000, that means that people got to get out of here. Like the current people that are here, they need to leave. And if you choose a number over 40,000, that means you want some kind of growth. And let me tell you why I phrased the question. It's because if we start talking about like, well, we need to figure out what Quincy needs to be, that's where everything goes sideways. That's where you get like the big fights on Facebook. The idea
that's a lack of leadership.
Well, even when you have leadership, even when you have good leadership, not much works. Like Kyle Moore picked a number. He picked 45,000. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that just expired, right?
I don't know, but he thought to himself, what's a number that's not too small, not too big, but shows growth? Mm-hmm. He chose 45,000, which means that he thought to himself, I think we should increase the population by 5,000 people.
Now, did he bring a consultant in for that?
I doubt it.
We bring consultants in for everything. I think this might be a good one to bring one in for.
Well, I mean, we can't get people, on my Facebook post, I got 90 comments. So I got mostly people that chose something reasonable in terms of like a positive growth number. So somebody asked me, they said, what's your number, Frank? And yeah. I just, you know what I did? I added 10,000 over the current
50 grand. 50,000 people.
50 grand. Boom, done. Because at that point, I mean, I think it'd be really difficult to bring in 50 grand. I don't even think it's going to happen.
But I guess it depends on who and how and where they're going to fit. And yeah, I just think it's more difficult than that. I really do think you can't just say, I want 10,000 more people because, I think it's futile. It's irresponsible. I want to do the right thing. I think, and I don't know what the right thing is, but I think we could probably work together if we could all figure out what I think the question definitely has to be posed. What do we want Quincy to be?
So, want to hear what I kind of figured out?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know how I know you guys. I know Money Rivers talked about the TIF exhaustively, mm-hmm. And so that's not what I'm trying to do here. This is not about TIF. It's not about government programs or manufacturing or. Oh, we don't have enough residential homes for the people anyway as it stands. Why would you want to bring more people in here? If you bring in more people, you're going to get more crime. Oh, what happens if Amazon wants what happens if Elon Musk wants to open up a gigafactory here and that adds 8,000 jobs just like that? You're going to get people from all over the world. You're going to get those employees.
Can we sustain them? Can our infrastructure sustain
Well, let's put it this
increase like
let's
that.
Put it this way. Our infrastructure can be, I mean, first of all, whenever you've got...
It can be based on that, but that's when the TIF comes in, right?
If Elon came in, no, because TIF is like a 30-year.
See, that's...
TIF is a 30-year perspective. I mean, people are getting like real closed off about saying like it's like a short-term thing and like so-and-so wants.
If it were shorter term, it might be a little more.
What I'm saying is
acceptable.
If it became public news that Elon was going to put a gigafactory in Quincy, Illinois, you know what would happen?
That.
When you may not want it.
I don't think I do.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if that happened, you would have everybody all over the world who are really smart, like wealthy people, smart people with money, investors, they would take a look at the situation and they would say, oh, here's how I can make money. Which, by the way, Elon's not going to do that because he's probably thinking, I'm not going to go to Illinois. I'm not going to go to a blue state. No. Why would I do that?
Taxes.
Like, why would an investor purposefully come to a blue state if they know that the blue state kind of wants to chop their nuts off? Like, why would you do that? Incentives. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Yeah. So that's why there's an exodus out of blue states into red states. Generally speaking, blue states are generally losing population. Red states are generally increasing population. It's a population question because we're deep in the immigrant world migration area. People are moving all over the place, and people speak with their money. And there's
their money or the government's money. There's a difference there.
Well,
right?
Sure, but what I'm saying is, I don't think your average investor is.
Oh no! I was talking migrant, like, as a typical migrant or immigrant coming. I thought that's what you were talking about. No.
A typical migrant or immigrant coming into America are coming in not because they have money, but because the United States government has money that will give them money.
100%. So, I mean, I guess, I struggle with the population number just because I
want to hear something kind of interesting.
Yeah.
From my assessment, I'm not going to name names, but the people who gave me negative numbers don't live in Quincy.
Okay.
Okay. The people who gave me status quo, no change, were people who most of them were investors in Quincy. Most of them were people with money and means and willpower and huge cojones that are building Quincy. Most of them wanted no change. This is my experience. The ones that wanted bigger populations were people that, and this is a strong statement, that's why I would never name names, they didn't have much.
Yeah.
They didn't have much. And I think they made the assumption that if there's a larger population in Quincy, maybe something would pop up for them.
See, I think it's interesting because I look at Quincy as my hometown. I love what we have. If I had to make our number bigger and sacrifice anything for my girls, meaning class size, safety, resources, infrastructure, I would say no. So
you say no change.
I would say no change or slow change. I mean, what we were talking about, 5,000 people, what Kyle Moore said, I don't think that's astronomical. I also don't think it's going to change the face of our economy. So I think it's relatively conservative. I think growing is probably a good thing if you're doing it the right way and you're making sure that you can sustain that. But I don't know that that was ever really a foundation. I think it was just, we want to grow Quincy. And I think that, while that's a great sentiment because that's kind of the sign of evolution is growing, unless you have a city that can support that with resources, I think it's a little kind of irresponsible to your current community. So
there were 7 people that I asked that are from other countries
Okay.
that know Quincy. All 7 of them, and I think this is really interesting, all 7 of the people that I asked that question to, all of them said things like, why would you want to change Quincy? Quincy is amazing. Yeah. So there's this guy, a really sharp guy. He lived here for 4 years. He had two back-to-back corporate contracts with General Mills as an engineer.
Okay.
Shout out to Zlatko Masic. Anyway,
good name.
From Serbia, and now I don't know where he is now, but anyway, he said that Quincy, he always wants to come back to Quincy. He said that out of all the places he's lived in war-torn Serbia.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's lived in Clearwater, Florida. I mean, a nice place.
Sure.
Clearwater? Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
there's a lot of people in Quincy. Mm-hmm. If you say, do you want to move to Clearwater? They'd be like, yeah. So I'm talking about a guy that lived in that area. He goes, no, Quincy is a special place. There aren't that many places in the world like Quincy.
Yeah.
And there aren't that many places in the U.S. like Quincy. So he didn't have like a strong opinion on that number. But I've got a guy, one of the new gastroenterologists here in town. He is from a different country. He said, this place is amazing. This place is amazing. I've lived in different places. I've lived in Lebanon, lived in Chicago. This place is amazing. He goes, I understand how, he goes, I see all of the fighting, and I see all like the stuff coming out of Muddy River and the interviews and the podcasts. And I talked to people at Blessing or QMG, I'll be guessing. But this is amazing. As a matter of fact, I don't want to leave. I mean,
growth, I think, is it's a natural sign of, prosperity. But I don't know that it really. I don't know that it really applies to a place like Quincy. I mean, of course, we want to offer things that will keep people here, but I don't know that unless we're enticing the right people that we necessarily want to grow. And I'll go ahead and say this, and I know it sounds super shitty, but do we want to build resources and low-income property to attract more? Me? No, I don't. I want to help sustain and maintain the people who've lived here in Quincy for a long time, but do I want to become an attractive small town for lower-income people to move here and No, I don't. I don't want that. I don't want more government handouts to entice people. I don't want that, which is probably a reason that I kind of argue TIF. I know it's not the same thing, but I love private development. I think Quincy is full of people who are fully capable of that, and I fully stand on that foundation. And I thank anyone who does that with or without TIF money. I know it takes a lot of courage, a lot of skin in the game. But I think we've always been a community that is based on, we just have really strong threads throughout Quincy, and I don't want to see that unraveled just for the simple basis of growth or growing our population or, does that make sense?
I think over 90% of people would agree with what you just said.
Okay.
Over 90%.
And that's just me talking. And I know as soon as we cut the cameras, I'm going to be like, God, you should have said this and you should have said this. But that's coming from someone who's been born and raised here. And, when I talk to people about Quincy and how phenomenal it is, it's not because we're booming and we're getting this. Of course, I love a Target. Of course, I love, big box stores that we're bringing. I love Bergner's. I love variety. I love the small businesses that come in and offer these new things. I love Quincy. I love the people in Quincy. Do I want to open that up to people and make this a bigger, thriving city of people that I don't know and I don't know who's moving next door and we're having all these new different income properties? And no, I don't think that's necessary. So I hope that doesn't come off as
no. What you just said is you care about your liberties here. You care about security. You love your friends. You love your family.
That's why I've stayed here.
You're pretty proud of this town. Mm-hmm. If you didn't like it, you would leave. And you're pretty much exhibiting love for the place you live.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're going to end the pod.
Yeah.
Boom.
Okay.
You did it. Thank you so much for coming out.
This was great.
Thank you.